They thought I was the quiet one, the obedient one. But I read the fine print, and this time, silence signed a subpoena. When my father died, he left behind a house built with hands that never took a day off and a heart that trusted too easily. The deed wasn't flashy, just a brittle folder in the back of the old desk drawer, marked in fading ink, for them. And by them, he meant us. Me, my sister Elena, and our mother. Elena always had a flair for control. Growing up, she would rewrite our chore lists, delegate important tasks to herself, and lecture me on how to use conditioner correctly. I used to laugh it off. I told myself, she just needs to feel useful. But I should have looked closer. After the funeral, the house fell under a fog of grief and legal paperwork. We gathered in the living room, documents spread across the table like a battlefield. The will was simple. Split everything evenly. Dad trusted us. Mom didn't question a thing. Elena, however, pulled out a newer stack, shiny pages, perfect formatting, notarized. These are just updated forms, she smiled, tucking her hair behind one ear. It's easier if things are streamlined. My stomach turned when I noticed the header, Property Transfer Form. Primary owners, Elena Mendez, Lorena Mendez. My name wasn't there. 2 microseconds of silence. Then Elena said it with that signature grin. You kept that naively. She turned to Mom, her voice smooth. It's all under our name now. And Mom. She just nodded. I blinked. Not because I was shocked. Not really. I was taking inventory of patterns, of timelines, of digital trails. Elena had pre-filled everything. She had guided Mom's trembling hand like a choreographed waltz weeks ago. The same signature appeared on a bank form I'd found a month earlier, tucked behind the cereal boxes. I could have screamed, but I didn't. Instead, I excused myself, walked to the back room, closed the door softly, like I always do, and opened my laptop. See? There's a reason I chose quiet. A reason I stayed out of the drama, the lunches, the passive-aggressive group texts. While they had been busy moving names around, I had been busy tracking. Bank fraud, family theft, violation of beneficiary rights, all with timestamps, all with metadata, all with recorded screen captures. Because before he passed, Dad had asked me to be the digital executor. Just in case, he had said, you're the only one who reads everything. Turns out, reading everything isn't naive, it's nuclear. I hovered over the blue button labeled Submit to Treasury Oversight, then I tapped it. Once. The screen flashed. Report filed. Case ID A21B ASUN9431. And all I had to do now was wait. You won't believe what happened 2 hours later. And trust me, they didn't either. The doorbell rang exactly 2 hours and 7 minutes after I filed the report. Not knocked. Rang. That kind of ring doesn't echo like a neighbor's visit. It carries the precision of a calendar invite titled Federal Compliance Visit. Urgent. Mom opened the door, still in her house sweater. Elena stood behind her, latte in hand. She'd come to gloat, probably, unaware of the storm coded in Statute 21B heading her way. On the porch stood 2 agents in dark jackets, the kind that look civilian until you spot the embossed Treasury seal on the badge. Good afternoon, the taller one said, flipping open his ID. Maya Rincon, Treasury Oversight. We're here under Emergency Motion Act 21B regarding possible beneficiary fraud. Elena laughed. This must be a mistake. My sister is a little emotional. Maya didn't flinch. She turned to me. Are you Ava Mendez? Yes. We have a report filed under your name containing video logs, transfer histories, and a notarized will conflicting with the recent deed adjustments. May we come in? I stepped aside. Elena didn't. What the hell is this? She hissed, low and furious. You're bringing agents into Mom's house like this is some kind of... Agent Rincon cut her off with a quiet authority that silenced the room. Miss, this property is no longer under uncontested ownership. It is now under investigation. She handed over a printed document, thick letters across the top. Temporary freeze order, pursuant to Act 21B, and beneath it, subject to financial monitoring. Elena paled. Mom looked between us like she'd just realized she was watching 2 entirely different movies and had no idea who the villain was anymore. "You said it was just paperwork," she whispered to Elena. "You said it was to help." "I did help," Elena snapped. "I protected us. Ava's not even involved in the finances. She just what?" I asked calmly. "Read the law?" Maya glanced at me with what looked like the faintest nod of respect. Behind her, the second agent was already documenting the home office. Printers, folders, signed deeds, all of it was now evidence. Microcracks were appearing in Elena's facade, and I wasn't even done. "I'd also like to submit a digital access log," I said to Maya, pulling out a flash drive. "The laptop used to falsify the new deed form. It pings Mom's network at 3:12 a.m. on June 7th, same time the edits were saved." Maya took it. That would fall under electronic manipulation of fiduciary documents, which adds another layer. Elena stepped back, like the walls were closing in. "This is a family matter," she tried again. But the second agent spoke this time. "Not when it's classified as financial misconduct. Under Act 21B, familial ties are not immunity." Silence again. Not the tense kind, the kind that realigns power. I looked at my sister, the one who once locked me out of the bathroom just to feel in control. And I didn't need to yell, didn't need revenge. The law was speaking for me now, and it was louder than she'd ever been. They tried to take everything. But the system they underestimated just took it back. What would you have done in Ava's place? Drop your thoughts below. Your story might help someone else spot the signs. The strange thing about justice is how quiet it can be. No sirens, no slammed doors, just a soft series of printer beeps as Treasury agents compiled every copy, every clause, every shady signature that Elena had orchestrated. She sat on the edge of the couch now, that couch she once called tacky, twisting her bracelet like it was a prayer bead. But prayers don't override evidence logs. Agent Rincon asked if there was a safe. Elena blinked. "A safe?" "Yes. We have reasonable suspicion that certain unreported documents or assets may be stored off-record. Under Section 4 of the Beneficiary Protection Clause, we're authorized to request immediate access." There was a moment, not long, where Elena's eyes darted toward the hallway closet. Just a flicker, but it was enough. The second agent, a quiet woman named Selma, followed the glance, and in less than a minute opened the closet to reveal a fireproof lockbox. "That's just personal stuff," Elena said too fast. Selma opened it carefully, gloved hands lifting out a neat stack of envelopes, USB drives, and a bank notebook with a cover torn at the edge. Inside were forms transferring not just the house, but also several family savings accounts, one marked under Mom's name, another under a provisional trust for Elena's future children. Mom's face turned ghostly. "You said you didn't touch the accounts." "I didn't. I was just organizing," but Agent Rincon's voice came cold. "You were restructuring, without consent, without disclosure, and under fraudulent reassignment clauses." Elena stood up now. "This is getting blown way out of proportion. Ava's always been jealous of me. You know that," she said, voice rising. "Jealous. Of the girl who skipped family birthdays for her boyfriend's launch parties. Of the woman who bragged about navigating the system, only to now be sitting in the middle of a full-scale Treasury investigation." I didn't answer, didn't flinch, because her tantrum wasn't about innocence. It was about losing control. As Elena paced, Selma handed Maya a printed copy of the provisional trust document, and that's when I saw it. At the bottom, a signature line, Ava Mendez, but I never signed anything. Maya turned to me. "Did you authorize this document?" "No." Maya's tone shifted. "Forgery. That escalates this." Elena froze. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator. You could hear my mother's breath catch. "Miss Mendez," Maya said to Elena, tone razor sharp, "I suggest you consult legal counsel immediately. Treasury may move to freeze all related personal accounts pending a fraud hearing." Silence. And then, the softest sound in the room, a click, Selma's pen against her clipboard. Just a note, just a log. But for Elena, it sounded like a countdown. She thought she played the system. She forgot some of us read it. By evening, the energy in the house had shifted from indignation to something quieter, heavier, like walking through fog and realizing you're the only one who brought a map. Mom sat in the kitchen, staring at a mug of chamomile tea she hadn't touched. Elena had locked herself in the guest room, the one with the silk pillows she once called too plain. And I? I sat across from Agent Rincon, laptop open, as she reviewed the last of the digital access logs. "You're unusually thorough," she said, eyes scanning a color-coded Excel file. "Occupational hazard," I replied. She raised an eyebrow. I didn't elaborate, but it's true. Working in compliance for a mid-tier bank had trained me to notice anomalies. In numbers, in people, in family. Elena was an anomaly dressed as confidence, and that was her greatest trick. The Treasury team packed up by 8:30 p.m., leaving behind sealed envelopes, a timeline sheet, and a preliminary injunction order against any further asset movement. On the way out, Selma paused by me. "You'll get a letter of acknowledgement. Your report was beyond standard." She meant it. I could feel it in the way she said nothing else. By 9 p.m., it was just us again. The fractured trinity, mother, sister, me, and the silence between us was no longer protective. It was accusatory. Mom finally looked up. Her voice cracked, but it came out. "Why didn't you tell me what she was doing?" I swallowed. "Because every time I tried, you told me I was being dramatic." Her eyes glistened. "I thought she was taking care of things." She was, just not for us. I didn't want to twist the knife, but I also wasn't going to cover the wound. There was a rustle. Elena appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, face streaked with mascara. "I made mistakes," she said flatly. "But this? You brought strangers into our house." "No," I replied, calm. "I brought the law into the room you tried to redecorate with lies." She scoffed, but there was no venom left in it, only fear. "I could go to jail. You forged my signature." She blinked. That landed like a brick. I was trying to protect us, to structure things so it wouldn't get messy. It got messy the second you acted like us didn't include me. Another beat of silence. Then, to my shock, Mom stood up. "Elena, go pack a bag." "What?" "You'll stay with your friend Camila until this is sorted. The house is under monitoring. You can't stay here, not after what you've done." "You're kicking me out?" "I'm asking you to leave," Mom said. "There's a difference. Learn it." For once, Elena didn't argue. She turned, walked upstairs, slower than usual, and shut the door. I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady, not because I had won, but because I had refused to lose quietly. She tried to erase me from the documents. Now the documents speak louder than she ever could. The next morning arrived with the weight of bureaucracy, not rage, not regret, just the rhythm of systems doing what they do best, documenting everything. I woke up to 4 emails. The first, notice of temporary custodianship, Treasury oversight referend A21B09431. The second, alert, attempted withdrawal, account flagged for audit. The third was from Elena. No subject line, just 3 sentences. "I can't believe you did this. You're not family anymore. I hope you're happy." And the fourth, from my dad's lawyer. Subject, read carefully. Inside, a single line. "I knew she'd try this. Come by when you're ready. The envelope's still in my safe." That line sat in my chest like a detonator, because even from beyond the grave, my father had understood something none of them did. That loyalty without boundaries becomes enablement. I left the house before Mom could ask where I was going. She needed space, so did I. Mr. Costello's office hadn't changed. Same bookshelf, same framed photo of a dog that had clearly passed away years ago. He greeted me with a look I hadn't expected. Not pity, not pride, just something that felt like respect. "She went for the house first?" he asked, unlocking the drawer. I nodded. "And the accounts," I added. "She had everything prepped. Signatures, trust forms, even forged mine." "She's always been strategic," he murmured, "but she never understood the difference between strategy and entitlement." He handed me a thick envelope. "This was your father's. He made me promise to hold it in case, in case." Inside, a sealed letter, a certified document marked Beneficiary Protection Addendum, Independent Executor, and a notarized video transcript. I stared at the final page. My name. My father's signature. The line. "In the event of any breach of equity or intent, I authorize Ava Mendez as sole executor of beneficiary review." My hands trembled slightly. Not because of power, but the weight of being right, when all you ever wanted was fair. When I returned home, the house was quiet. Elena's car was gone. Mom sat at the kitchen table, slowly going through a folder left by Agent Rincon. She looked up as I entered. "You're the executor," she said. Not a question. I placed the documents gently on the table. I didn't ask for this. He trusted me with it, because I didn't want anything but what was fair. Mom closed her eyes. She manipulated me. She depended on the fact that you'd feel guilty before you asked questions. Tears welled, and for the first time, I saw my mother not as someone weak, but as someone who had also been deceived. She didn't need blame. She needed facts. So I handed her the letter Dad wrote, his words, his voice softer than mine, but firmer than Elena's ever was. We read it together, in silence. Because sometimes clarity doesn't arrive through arguments, but through carefully written truths. They forged papers. I presented proof. And now the law knows who this house really belongs to. 2 weeks passed. No screaming, no knockdowns, just the slow hum of compliance. Every room in the house felt different now. Not haunted, just reorganized. Like every wall had learned to breathe again after years of silent tension. Mom spent most of her days reading. Quietly, deliberately. She didn't speak much about Elena, but she no longer defended her either. That was a shift in itself. The living room held the residue of everything that had unfolded. Printed reports, Treasury seals, and the edges of tape where folders had been organized and resealed. The law had spoken. But healing was another language entirely. On a Tuesday morning, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a call. A formal notice, sealed and registered. Inside, Notice of Restitution Proceedings. Case Ref, A21B 19431. You are hereby notified of scheduled hearings regarding forgery of beneficiary documentation, misuse of elder financial influence, violation of Federal Act 21B, attempted concealment of transferred funds via unregistered family trust. At the bottom, Plaintiff, Ava Mendez filed on behalf of original beneficiary estate of Carlos Mendez. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like an obituary for a version of family that was never real to begin with. That night, I opened the video Dad had left in the envelope. He sat in the backyard, wind moving through his silver hair, voice calm. "I know how this looks," he began. "You being the quiet one, the good one, maybe too good, but I've watched. You ask hard questions, you document things others ignore. You don't need the spotlight, Ava, you just want the truth. And if you're watching this, then it means the truth needed you." He looked into the camera, not soft, not sentimental, just certain. Don't let them gaslight your memory of what's fair. Silence isn't surrender, it's strategy, and your voice matters even when they pretend it doesn't. Then he smiled. The same crooked smile he'd flash when he beat us at board games. "I trust you." That was it. No legalese, no drama, just the final word of a man who knew his daughter, and the war she'd one day have to fight. Elena didn't show up for the first hearing. Her attorney filed a delay, citing emotional distress. But the Treasury didn't flinch. They'd seen too many versions of this to be swayed by tears on paper. Instead, they advanced with the forensic audit, which uncovered that she had attempted a final transfer the night before the agents arrived, from Mom's retirement account to a new account in Panama. The timing alone was a trigger violation. Account flagged, transfer reversed, intent established. The room was quiet when the analyst said, "That establishes deliberate concealment. Recommend full custodial review and restitution." I didn't look at Elena's lawyer. Didn't have to. He knew she had no ground left. When I came home that evening, Mom had cooked dinner. A full table. Something we hadn't done in months, maybe years. "I miss him," she said quietly. "I know." We ate in silence for a while. Then she said something I never expected. "You protected us, even when I didn't see what was happening." She reached for my hand. "Thank you for not yelling. Thank you for documenting." That sentence, simple as it was, unraveled something in me, because finally, someone understood. I wasn't the dramatic one. I wasn't the jealous one. I was the witness, and I refused to be erased. The house never needed a savior. It needed a record keeper, one who knew where the truth lived. 3 months later, the house looked the same, but everything felt refiled. The winter light through the window didn't change the paint on the walls, but it softened the edges of memory. Even the air felt less watchful, like the walls had exhaled. Mom had started planting again, not for anyone else, just for herself. Marigolds in the back corner, basil by the kitchen window. She no longer asked about Elena. I think she was learning painfully and slowly that motherhood doesn't mean martyrdom, and that silence, when misused, can become its own betrayal. As for me, I was still attending hearings, still presenting logs, still providing evidence. But there was a difference now. I wasn't defending myself. I was defining the record. In one of the final sessions, the restitution panel requested an updated breakdown of Elena's activity. I handed over the packet, 64 pages of time-stamped manipulations. Every edit, every transfer, every clause reworded at 2 a.m. The lead auditor, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and sharp eyes, looked up from the last page and asked, "How did you know what to track?" I smiled faintly. Because she underestimated how long I've been invisible, and when people think you're not paying attention, they tend to get sloppy. The panel deliberated for 17 minutes. Then, unanimously, all properties, accounts, and assets will revert to original beneficiary structure under the will of Carlos Mendez. Elena Mendez will be required to pay restitution and will be restricted from any financial co-signatures involving elder accounts for the next 10 years. It wasn't jail, but it was public and permanent. I walked out of that building lighter, not triumphant, just unburdened. Outside, the sun hit cold pavement. I checked my phone, a single text from Elena. I hope it was worth it. I didn't respond. Because silence is never about avoidance. Sometimes it's the final signature. Later that week, I found myself back in the attic, cleaning, sorting. Not because I had to, because the house finally felt like mine to take care of. That's when I found the photo. A faded Polaroid wedged between old receipts and a manual for a 2002 washing machine. It was Dad, holding a younger me on his shoulders. Elena standing to the side, already dressed in something too polished for the park. The caption on the back, "Teach her where things go. She'll remember." And I had. I had remembered where the truth went, where trust lived, where people thought no one was watching. But I was. Always. She gambled on control, but I kept the ledger. And in the end, it wasn't revenge. It was restoration. A month after the ruling, a letter came. Not from the Treasury, not from court. From Elena. Plain white envelope. No return address, just my name. Written in that same aggressive cursive she used back in high school. Slanted, sharp, too sure of itself. Inside, "You always thought you were better, but you just had more time alone. I hope the silence keeps you warm." No apology, no regret. Just a wounded ego trying to sound powerful. I sat with it for a while. Then fed it into the shredder, because that letter wasn't meant to reach me. It was meant to resurrect her version of the story, and I wasn't interested in revisiting her fiction. The strange thing about being right is that no one throws a party for you. There are no balloons, no toasts, just the subtle shift of peace replacing chaos, if you're lucky, and I was. But it's not the kind of luck you find. It's the kind you build, slowly, quietly, with patience that others mistake for weakness. One morning, I saw Mom folding laundry, humming, not a song I recognized, just a small melody. She caught me watching. "I don't know how to rebuild," she said. "Not yet, but I want to try." That was enough. So we started small, rewriting grocery lists together, repainting the hallway a soft almond white. She even asked about my spreadsheets. "Teach me the basics," she said. "I don't want to feel that stupid again." I didn't say, "You were never stupid," because she wasn't ready for that. Instead, I showed her how to track transactions, how to set up alerts, how to protect herself from the kind of trust that gets weaponized. And slowly, my mother, once the softest target, and became someone with edges, not bitter, just informed. The next Treasury follow-up came with one final update. All assets returned. All forged authorizations nullified. Restitution payments scheduled quarterly. Elena Mendez placed on National Oversight Watch List for 5 years. I read the line twice. A watch list. Not prison, not exile, but exposure, which, for someone like Elena, was the one thing she couldn't manipulate. That evening, I stepped outside barefoot, into the backyard where Dad used to sit with his coffee and crossword. The grass was cold, but steady. I looked at the windows glowing from inside, not from screens, not from drama, but from light. Warm, simple, unapologetic light. The house wasn't haunted anymore. It was inherited, rightfully, and I didn't need to prove that again, because it was already on record, stamped, logged, indisputable. Some people steal things, others keep receipts. There's something peculiar about a house when it finally belongs to no one but the truth. No shadows pacing in the hallway, no footsteps with hidden intentions, just floorboards that creak honestly, like old men telling stories, with nothing left to hide. I began cleaning out the last untouched drawer in Dad's desk, not because I had to, because I wanted to see what was buried under years of silence. Inside, I found a half-broken stapler, a cassette tape with no label, and a yellowed receipt from a hardware store, dated 5 days before Elena submitted the first fraudulent transfer. It listed one item: fireproof safe, paid in cash. He knew, weeks before anyone else. He knew, not in a panicked way, not paranoid, just prepared. That was always Dad, the man who planted trees knowing he'd never sit under them. Later that afternoon, I met with a notary. Just me. No sister. No side arguments or emotional threats. A single room, a single purpose. We recertified the deed. I initialed the margins, signed the bottom, and handed over a folder that contained the full history, from original ownership through the attempted fraud to the final restitution. The notary looked up at me. "You've done everything by the book." I nodded. I wasn't interested in revenge. Pause. Only record keeping. She smiled, not out of pity, but recognition, and that felt better than applause. Walking home, the street felt different, not brighter, not cleaner, just neutral, like the world was finally giving back what it had withheld while I stayed quiet. There's a kind of dignity in refusing to burn bridges, in documenting every plank instead and proving that you built them in the first place. That night, I found a voicemail on my phone. Unknown number. Distorted background noise. Elena. "Mom called. Said you're still in the house. I guess that's where you win. But don't think you're better than me. You just played the longer game." Click. No apology, no acknowledgement, just one final note. An echo of who she's always been. But this time, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance, the healthy kind. I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the night air sharp against my skin. Inside, the lights glowed steady. The silence wasn't tense anymore. It was deserved. And in that silence, I heard the smallest sound, the wind brushing against the marigolds. They'd bloomed, without permission, without performance, just because the soil was finally safe. She tried to take what was never hers. I didn't fight her. I proved her wrong, one document at a time. There's a room in the house I hadn't stepped into since the first day Elena claimed everything. The one with the window that faced east, where the light always came in too early, too direct, painting the walls gold before the rest of the house woke up. It used to be Dad's study. Then, for a short while, it was hers. She brought in glass furniture, took down his shelves, replaced them with framed quotes that didn't belong to her. Now, it was empty. No ego, no echo, just space. And so, on a quiet Sunday morning, I unlocked the door and walked inside. The air still smelled faintly of cedar and dust, a clean kind of old. In the corner sat his armchair. She hadn't had the heart to throw it out. Or maybe she didn't notice it behind all the things she'd forced in. I sat down, not ceremoniously, not to claim anything, just to remember, because that's what memory does best when it's not trying to rewrite itself. It holds what matters and lets the rest go. The restitution process was officially closed. Funds returned, name restored, oversight concluded. The final letter from the Treasury arrived 2 days ago. Subject: Case A21B Ausangam 431, closed with full resolution. It included a note from Maya Rincon, handwritten. "Most people file reports out of rage. You filed yours with clarity. The system rarely gets to thank people like you. But if we had more of you, we'd have fewer cases like hers. I sat with that for a long time, because we're taught to believe silence is compliance, but in the right hands, silence is a tool, and in my hands, it had become a ledger. Mom's strength returned gradually. She joined a local book club, started volunteering. She even laughed again, once so hard she snorted and then cried from the release. I should have seen it, she said one night. She was always louder, but you were always clearer. I didn't need her to say that. But hearing it was like being handed a map back to a part of myself I'd stopped visiting. As for Elena, I don't know where she is. Last I heard, she'd tried to start over in Arizona. New city, new image, but the same signature red flags. They always bleed through eventually. But that's not my business anymore. My story stopped revolving around her the moment the ink dried on the last corrected form. In this house now, peace doesn't announce itself. It just arrives, one quiet drawer at a time, one warm light at sunset, one moment where nothing needs to be said, and everything is understood. Because there are victories that don't end in cheers. They end in clean countertops, unlocked windows, and names that are once again your own. I kept the original folder Dad left, didn't scan it, didn't upload it, because some truths aren't meant for servers. They're meant to be held, touched, and passed down to the ones who read everything. Justice wasn't loud, it was logged. And I didn't need to shout to be heard, I just needed to document.